Today, you thought the holiday scares were done? We have another horror anthology for you showing the darker perspective of the holidays. This is Through the Boughs, a Yuletide offering number 1. Hello there, Comic Clan, and welcome to Comics in the Cross, that greatest YouTubers you've never heard of. I, of course, am your host for today, Cross, and today we are checking out Through the Boughs, a Yuletide offering from DSTLRY Publishing. And this is the last episode of Crossmas. Sad. We've had a lot of great stuff for Christmas this year. I was worried we were going to run out of some Christmas stuff, but we had a lot of great releases. And apparently one of the big releases was horror anthologies, because Through the Boughs is another horror anthology that we are checking out to wrap up our year. If you missed out our previous horror anthology review of Dread the Halls number 0 from Image Comics, go ahead, click that card up in the corner and check out our review for that, and I recommend going and picking it up for yourself. Definitely worth a look. But before we jump into today's issue, let's go ahead, get all the usual YouTube stuff out of the way. Go down below if you have not hit that subscribe button, please go ahead and help it. A bunch of you have subscribed and helped this channel grow this year, and we greatly appreciate it. So if that's something that you've not done yet and you're enjoying this content, it would really help us out. And also hit that like button, it helps us get a lot more awareness out there, and we greatly appreciate it. Alright, all the sappy sucking up YouTube stuff out the road, let's jump on in to our final comic review of 2024. This is Through the Boughs. Through the Boughs, a Yuletide offering number 1 is an anthology of 7 holiday stories with a darker twist to them. I'll be covering 4 of the stories in today's video, as the book is just too large to do in one video, but all creative teams for each story will be listed down below. The writers contributing to this anthology are Patrick McHale, JK, Sweeny Boo, James Tynion IV, Molly Mendoza, Ryan Andrews, Wroten and Grim Wilkins. Artwork and colouring are provided by Jim Campbell, Sweeny Boo, Jensine Eckwall, Molly Mendoza, Ryan Andrews, Wroten and Grim Wilkins. And lettering throughout the book is provided by Jim Campbell, Clayton Cowles, Aditya Bidikar, Ryan Andrews, Wroten and Grim Wilkins. Our first tale comes from Patrick McHale and Jim Campbell, the creator and storyboard artist of the beloved Over the Garden Wall, which, if you've never seen that, I highly recommend it and you should absolutely go and check it out. This story is called The Man in the Blood Red Coat, and in it we meet 2 goblin children, Mouldy and Putrid, along with their caretaker, an old witch named Mother Horrid. Mouldy and Putrid wanted to go out and play, but Mother Horrid wouldn't let them go out, as tonight is the night that the man in the blood-red coat wanders the earth and sneaks into strangers' homes. They cannot even boil something as small as a mouse, as they don't have any fuel for the fire, and it's far too late to go out and collect more firewood. So Mother Horrid locks the door and sends the children to their beds. However, with it being so early, with it only being midnight and goblin children not usually going to bed until sunrise, the children couldn't fall asleep. Then Putrid remembers that her brother had hidden a couple of dead frogs outside to keep them icy and cold for them, and they decide to defy Mother Horrid and leave the house to go and find them. Once they've eaten and have full bellies, the children forget all about returning home and instead continue to play outside until the sun comes up. As the sun rises, they rush home and near the house begin to walk backwards so they can clear their footprints and hide the evidence that they ever left. The next morning, the children are awoken by a yell. Mother Horrid sees the remains of the children's tracks in the snow, but she mistakes them for the sled tracks, ones that are known to be left by a certain man in a blood-red coat. She is convinced that he visited them last night and left horrible gifts like sugar plums, fruit cakes, or peppermint sticks. But while looking around the house, she catches Putrid eating one of the frozen frogs from the night before, and believes it's from the man in the blood-red coat. But guilt-ridden, the children admit to leaving the house. They are sent back to their rooms and told to put on their socks as well, as their feet are surely freezing from their adventure. As they go to put on their socks though, they find that there is something strange inside. They are full of coal, and Mother Horrid surmises that although he is not a good person, the children must have brought out the better nature of the man in the blood-red coat for him to leave such a wonderful gift like this. As the first story comes to a close, they start a fire under the cauldron, and both of the goblin children get to pick whichever animal they want to throw in and boil. So I really enjoyed this first story. I thought it was a cute little start to the book. I thought it wasn't too over the top or scary or terrifying. Horror-wise, it was very much more, it felt more kids' fantasy. But I can definitely see the vibes of Over the Garden Wall from it when you say it's from the creator of Over the Garden Wall and the artist that worked on it. It's like, yeah, absolutely. I can 100% see that being the case. I definitely liked the story. I love the fact of I'm a sucker for horror stuff that twists good things round the other way, such as like how the man in the blood red coat, he's feared by, Mother Horrid because he brings these good sweet treats and gifts. And they don't want that because they want horrible, nasty things. And then they're like, oh, the kids must have got through to him because he brought them coal, which was a good thing for them. I love little twists like that. I think that's a really great thing. I think it's a really fun story. It's almost strange it being in a distillery book because it's almost like it could be a young kid's. Like, I feel like I could let my kids read that opening story and give them an introduction to something a little spooky, but not scary and not horrifying, but just a little darker twist on the way the world is. But overall, yeah, I enjoyed this first story. It's not my favourite, it didn't blow me away or anything, and I think it's not what I was looking for in this book. I want something that's scary, I want something that's dark, I want something that twists these good things on its head, and those stories definitely come. But yeah, this was a cute opening though, to kind of set you up that the world's kind of turned on its head at the very least. So awesome introduction for that, but let's jump on in to our next story. The next story we are looking at is the Yule Beast, from Sweeny and Clayton Cowles. We start by joining a Yule celebration happening at a castle. There is singing and dancing, eating and drinking, and much merriment to be had. As the young prince goes to get himself some food, he accidentally drops some bread which rolls into a dark passageway. We quickly see that he is not alone, as he's stalked from the shadows. But as the beast stalks him and approaches, it's scared off by a group of people coming into the hallway. The beast is spotted, and as it flees into the forest, the king calls for a group of his knights to track it down and kill it. In the woods we meet a young woman. We're never given what her name is, but she is in the forest attempting to gather firewood, when all of a sudden a massive white mound comes rolling towards her, and she almost is swept away by it but is able to dodge out of the way. When it comes to a complete halt, she is unharmed but ventures forward to investigate the mound. She prods it with a stick and is met with a massive and beautiful white cat. The beast glares at the woman and begins to hiss and growl. But the woman realises that the creature is defending itself because it is in fact injured. She says that she doesn't bite and asks the beast not to bite her in kind, and tells it that she wants to help. The woman cleans and wraps the wound on the beast's leg. As the beast still sizes her up, it hears a murmuring coming from the woman's cloak, and wrapped up tight underneath her clothes is a baby. The woman tells the beast that the baby has a cold that she just can't seem to shake, and she's been trying to find a way to warm her up. The beast then chooses to lay on its side and offers the woman and her child to cuddle into the beast's warm fur and sleep and rest, which the woman accepts and is wholly grateful for. As morning approaches, the king's knights had been tracking the beast all night long and are just about to give up the search when all of a sudden they see something up ahead. The knights approach the beast and the woman, drawing their swords on it, and they demand that the woman wake up and move out of the way by order of the king. The woman says that she will not move. And our second story comes to a close with the woman and the beast exchanging a look with one another, and the beast leaping into action, tearing the knights apart. Happy Yuletide. This was a very interesting story to go into in this anthology. I believe the story, although I wasn't able to get confirmation on it, but I do believe that the story takes its inspiration from the Icelandic folklore of the Yule cat. At least from the name, the Yule Beast and the Yule cat, and the fact that it's a giant cat in the forest. The Yule cat in Icelandic folklore, though, is a giant cat that kills anyone that doesn't receive new clothes for Christmas, and that doesn't seem to play a factor in this. But I believe it was at least the beginning and inspiration, or at least partially inspirational for this story. Just for the fact of, like, the fact it's called the Yule Beast and it's a giant cat, it must have had some sort of factor, otherwise it's a massively amazing coincidence. This was a very simple and straightforward story, and don't take that as meaning that it's bad, because it's definitely not. Very enjoyable story, very interesting, very straightforward. The introduction part of it being at the castle and stuff seems to have just been the way to get the king's men hunting it. I feel like even for a short story, this one could have done with just a few more pages to expand stuff. It feels like it was just shy of something like really great as a small short story based within folklore. But for what we got, it was really cool. I really liked the Yule Beast. I really liked its design as a giant white cat. The cat's very reminiscent of my cat, although my cat is black. It's got that very kind of like puffy sort of mane around it and big fluffy tail, and it's like very much makes me think of my black cat that we just recently got. And I like it. I like that we see the Yule Beast being open to the woman, like helping her and mending her, and we see it giving sympathy to the woman and her child to allow them to sleep and get warmth from them, protecting itself and them from the guards. My only curiosity of the story is, I get the opening bit is so that we can see the military like go hunting for the beast and have the big cool shot at the end of the beast killing them all. Why was the Yule Beast in the castle though? Because it doesn't seem to be linked to the folk tale enough that it's like looking for people to kill that didn't get clothes. Although maybe it is and we just don't get to see that play out. But I would have liked a few more pages given to it just so we could have seen that explanation of why was the beast there? Was it there for a specific reason? What's a bit more of the mythos around the beast? And I feel like that could have been fleshed out with just a few more pages. No, it doesn't even need to have been a whole 20-page story. But the real highlight of this story is the artwork. The artwork is absolutely stunning from Sweeny Boughs. It's absolutely phenomenal. The image that stands out to me is the image that I put up on screen of the woman standing in front of the beast in the woods, and it's the snowy ground, the white cat, the black forest kind of around them, but there's still almost like this air of like colour round about it. And that's what I love. There's almost like a dream state around a lot of what happens in this story, because there's almost this like, the only thing that springs to mind is like the kind of like Aurora Borealis kind of lights in the sky, but like it's almost like that across the page a little bit, or coming off of things that makes it almost like a dream state, which is absolutely stunning. This story is worth it alone for that art. I can absolutely forgive like any shortcomings with the story, which isn't saying a lot. I honestly enjoyed the story a lot, but like I said, just that expansion on it, but I can absolutely forgive that for this amazing artwork. It's absolutely beautiful, and definitely the highlight of this story on the Yule Beast. So definitely go and check that one out, for nothing else, for that amazing art. But I don't want to just hang about, so let's jump in to our third story for today. The third story that we are looking at today is called Crumbs, a very bad elf. As this story begins, we hear that in the North Country, when the snow begins to fall, that it brings excitement to all of the villages. They decorate for the season and bake lots of tasty treats, because each village is visited by an elf that brings the magic of the season to every single home. Every village waits all year in anticipation of their elf to visit their village. That is all but one town. In Wintersburg, there are no fancy decorations, no pies cooling on any windowsills, but there are wooden boards nailed to the windows and threatening messages attached to the doors, because whether or not they like it, Crumbs the elf has come to visit. The other elves love children and teach them how to play games or how to build snowmen. Crumbs loves children too. He especially loves their teeth. Crumbs thinks that teeth are the most beautiful thing in the world. In fact, he keeps his teeth collection in a little sack on his belt. If he finds any chimneys in town unlit, then he will crawl down the chimney and into the home with his trusty pliers in hand, in order to collect more teeth for his collection. Every season, the people of the town gather to try and plot a way to capture Crumbs and rid themselves of him forever. And 20 years ago, they almost did just that. They came the closest that they ever had to catching him, but it did not end well. The people invited Crumbs to a feast in his honour, thanking him for all the joy he brought. They fed him his favourite food, rotting fish, so much that he had his fill and fell asleep. They then bound him and tied the heaviest rocks they could find to him and threw Crumbs into the river, only for them to hear his laughter the next day. And then one by one, he found everyone that had been there for his meal and took them for a swim in the river instead. The people of Wintersburg all have a story of their run-ins with Crumbs the elf, and every winter they long for the first days of spring and for the snow to begin to melt, signalling that Crumbs' time has come to an end for another year. Every year, it of course comes, and every year Crumbs leaves with his pliers in hand and teeth jangling on his waist, and a promise to the town that he will indeed be back again next year. This was definitely a very interesting story. This is definitely more what I had in mind when I'm thinking of darker Christmas stories or darker holiday stories. You know, the first two stories that we covered definitely have a darker twist to them, or it's a different view on the Christmas stories. This is the dark stuff that I love. Like, all these little towns, all these clearly meant to be kind of like old German sort of towns that have an elf come and do all these lovely, amazing things for them and bring gifts and do sweet treats and play games with the kids. And then there's this one town that has this dark, twisted elf that has a fascination with pulling teeth and playing tricks and doing horrible things to people, and whenever they even try to get out of it or try to get them back, it backfires on them. Like, this is the sort of dark, twisted story I loved. I loved the artwork in this. It was very old school fairy tale, and every page was like was a 9 panel, and like the 333 per page. And it was very old school, very simple, very basic kind of style of drawing, like you're reading an old school like fairy tale. And I absolutely adored it. I think they knocked it out the park with this one. Yeah, I think this one for me was possibly one of my favourites, just because it was perfect in terms of what it did. It got a right level of dread and horror and uneasiness to it without going too dark and too over the top. It was just unsettling enough. The story was great. It left on a great kind of what happens at Christmas, and then it leaves with him saying, I'll be back next year. Like, everything about this was just spot on. Kudos to the amazing artists and the amazing letterer for this. The amazing artist for this one was Jensine Eckwall, or Jensine Eckwall. Apologies, I'm not sure if I'm saying that completely correctly. And Aditya Bidikar was the letterer. I don't know their work at all. This is my first time really getting into their sort of work, but I thought they nailed the art style for this perfectly. And the reason I read this story in the first place was it was James Tynion IV, who's best known for a number of amazing comic books. Probably the most well-known and most famous one is Something is Killing the Children from Boughs Studios. And yeah, this being this good makes sense when it's somebody like Tynion that's on it. So this was absolutely up there. Definitely one of my favourite stories from the book. But let's move on, and this is going to be our last story that we are covering. Remember, I'm not covering every story, so this is the last one we're covering, but there's still a whole bunch that we haven't checked out. But let's get on into this. The fourth and final story that I'm going to be looking at today is Pulsar from Wroten. This story begins with an epic tale of a knight battling with a dragon. But this tale turns out to be an older woman who's telling the story to her young apprentice. The apprentice is painting a solstice tree and asks what their mentor thinks of it. The mentor tells him it looks half alive and half dead, like the Pulsar. He wonders if he's done it wrong, and she tells him no, just different, as in her younger days they used to be evergreen trees. The apprentice wants to hear another story and asks his mentor to tell him a story of when she was his age, back when the star was of one nature. The mentor tells their apprentice that her favourite time of year was winter, and that she enjoyed walking at night on her own. She vividly remembers the smell of the frozen air, and that it was so quiet that she was sure she could hear the snowflakes falling. The apprentice is in awe of how brave his mentor was to venture outside, and asks her if snowflakes were really this big and this sharp as he cuts out paper snowflakes. His mentor tells him that they were indeed all unique, but they were tiny and wet. Again, the apprentice is in awe and hopes that he will get to see snow for himself one day, and his mentor says she hopes so too. The mentor says it's time for her to head to bed and asks her apprentice if he's staying up. The apprentice responds saying that he has an idea for his tree, and they part ways with the saying, "May the star spare me." As the apprentice works, he all of a sudden finds himself in a completely white room with snowflakes falling. An angel-looking being stands in front of him and tells him, "Be not afraid," and then shushes the apprentice. The next morning, there's a man in black clothing and a plague doctor-esque mask. He appears to be some sort of security or police officer, and he's investigating the scene and asks the mentor exactly what happened last night, as they know the star turned at midnight. He berates her for living so close to the fever line, and when a colleague tries to get him to back off, he tells them that he ought to arrest her for having windows in her home, as that is willful endangerment. The colleague says that they were restoring her dwelling from before the change, and asks her what it was like. The mentor tells him that there was a bright light streaming in through the oculus, and she could hear singing. She says it was so strange yet familiar, and she feels like she had heard it long ago. The sound of snowfall. The colleague says that the apprentice is one with the star now, while the officer is a bit more cynical, believing he is nothing more than vapour now. He tells the mentor that it's dangerous to remain as the star will return, but she argues that this is her home. And her story comes to a close with the officer, exasperated with the mentor, telling her that the old-timer's sentimentality borders on madness. I absolutely adore Pulsar, and is absolutely my favourite story in this anthology, not because of horror elements, not because it meshes perfectly with Christmas to give that great scary holiday story, but because, Kay, if you're listening, I need to know more. I need you to write this book. I need more of this story because I need to know what happens. I am invested in finding out about this world. Like I said it earlier during the Yule Beast, I love mythology and storytelling in that sort of world, and cryptids and all these sort of creatures and bizarro things and other worlds, and this sets up everything of a world that I want to know more about. Like, it sounds like the world used to be a certain way because the mentor talks about walking at night, and the apprentice considers her so brave for it. Like, what's the fever line? Why does she live near it? Why aren't they allowed to live near it, or why shouldn't they be living near it? Why is it such a risk for her place to have windows and newer places are built without windows? What is the Pulsar? Why is it half alive and half dead like the tree that the apprentice is painting? What does it mean that the star has fallen or the star has dropped, like what, you know, the police officer security guy says to her? What is the star? Is the star this thing that came for the apprentice? Why did the room go completely white? Why does it look like an angel? Why does it shush him? Why can they hear singing? Why does it remind her of the sound of snowfall? Like, I need to know how this world works. I am fixated on Pulsar, and I need to know more about it. Kudos as well to Kay, because she did everything in this story herself. She did the writing, she did the script, she did the art, she did the lettering. So kudos to that. That's insane, to be completely honest. But seeing how invested I am in this, I am 100% wanting to go and check out Wroten's other comics and other work, because it completely got me invested in this story. I was completely excited for it and completely ready to delve into more. I wish I had a whole book, just even a whole 20 pages. It doesn't have to be a big long distillery length book, just even 20 pages and kick it off and give me more of that world in a one shot, or even better, give me an ongoing series set in that world. I would devour that completely. So I absolutely adored this. I adored the art, I adored the world building, the setting. I think it was phenomenal and peak of Through the Boughs, and what a story to wrap up this review for. As I said, all of the creators that are involved in Through the Boughs are listed down below, the books that they worked on, what they did for that book. So go check those out. Check out Through the Boughs for yourself. Definitely a great Christmas treat. In terms of excuse me, Christmas horror, I will say I do think Dread the Halls was the better horror comic, but Through the Boughs I don't think was meant to be. I think it was more meant to just be different stories set in winter time, Christmas time, holiday time, and it told some really intriguing stories. Some that I talked about, some that I haven't, so go check it out. It's still worth checking out. Try not to say check out too many more times, I promise. But what an amazing story to end Christmas. What an amazing issue to end 2024 on. Yes, this is it. Our last video pretty much for the year. I am taking a break over Christmas to spend it with the family. I have not taken a break since we started doing these reviews earlier this year, and I am excited to get a rest, to spend some time with the family. But we will be back in 2025. I have already got my slots filling up quickly for January. Some amazing stuff already planned and scheduled for January on the channel. So make sure that you come back. I hope you all have an amazing Christmas, a happy holiday. Whatever you celebrate, I hope it's a good one for you. I hope you have a great time with great family and have an amazing holiday couple of weeks. And we will absolutely see you in the new year. If you enjoy the content here and you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss when we come back after our break. And also, if you want to support us, go and check out our Patreon. I get it, I know it's Christmas. Don't worry about it. If you have got all your money going towards that stuff, that's great. But if you want to support us and are able to, $2 a month gets you our Patreon, early access to all of our content from all of our YouTube videos, as well as some exclusive content over there for people that want to and are able to. But it's never going to hinder us doing what we do here. Thank you for making 2024 an amazing year for Comics on the Cross. I couldn't imagine when I started this year that this channel would become a regular part of what I do. I couldn't imagine that doing comic reviews and interviews and indie comic book clubs was going to be my regular for most of my weeks. And it's just been amazing, and I adore doing this. Thank you so much for all of your love, all your support, for all those that have subscribed, that have commented, that have liked videos, that have shared it online. You are amazing, and thank you, Comic Clan. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without you. Greatly appreciate you all. I hope you all have an amazing rest of 2024, and this has been a good year to be a geek. And you know what? 2025 will be as well. Take care. We'll see you all next year. Peace.